You're listening to the Back Porch Talk podcast. Danny and Jason had many discussions and debates on the back porch while making pivotal investment moves with assets. That's right, with trading cards. They welcome you to the back porch and right into those discussions about current sports news with a fresh and unique twist. So come on and join us. Welcome to the Back Porch Talk podcast. I'm your coach, Jason.
Your coach, Danny.
And fans, we have a full show for you today. A little bit about the NFL free agency and March Madness, and a shout out towards the end. But first, Danny, right into the NFL free agency, where it was a whole lot happening the first day. Even before, I'll put it like this, even before the first day, the official day of the NFL season, there was a huge run on running backs. If there was ever a question in the value or the validity of running backs, I think this initial run answered the question. Running backs are important. It was just a whole lot happening. It seemed like every team made a change at running back in some form or fashion. Let me just start off, Danny, initially with the Green Bay Packers, and where a surprise early on in the day was that Josh Jacobs was coming over from the Las Vegas Raiders to the Green Bay Packers. Now, that move actually surprised me. I didn't see that one coming. And immediately I thought, okay, well, somebody's going to be moved off. It wasn't the person who I thought was going to be moved off. I thought it was Dylan that was going to be moved off. Dylan ends up staying on a one-year contract. Aaron Jones ends up leaving, and he goes to the Minnesota Vikings on a one-year deal. Now, there were reports in where the Packers were looking to slash Aaron Jones' contract, if you will. And it seems like it didn't work out. The negotiations, failed there. And nonetheless, before you know it, Josh Jacobs is now a Green Bay Packer. But as I mentioned, Aaron Jones goes to Minnesota Vikings on a one-year, $7 million contract. So significantly less than the, $12 million he was getting. So apparently he did take a pay cut. So I don't know just how true these reports really are about Packers and negotiating a pay cut, things of that nature. But what I will say is this is going to be really interesting to see how Dylan and Josh Jacobs work. This to me is an indication that the Green Bay Packers are going to be heavily relying upon their wide receivers and really looking to be flexible there, and where even short passing yardage, I can see the receivers being more of a impact there than running backs. Aaron Jones always was a threat from a wide receiving standpoint or catching the ball out the backfield. I don't see that necessarily from Josh Jacobs or even from Dylan here. So this is going to be an interesting dynamic in seeing the Green Bay Packers. But nonetheless, man, change is going to come. What say you, Danny, about the NFL free agency?
Jason, on that point with the Packers, the Dylan signing did baffle me a little bit because Jacobs is that bruiser as well. Mm-hmm. That's the kind of style he plays. And Dylan, I think he cost himself a lot of money last year, actually, because he had a lot of opportunities with Jones being out where he did not capitalize and take full advantage of that role. So for him to come back, I thought that was a surprise I thought they may have wanted like a speedier back. So very interesting from the Packers standpoint. They also signed McKinney on the defensive side of the ball, which was a surprise for them. It was just a surprise overall because they were very aggressive in free agency. We move on to the Atlanta Falcons, where the Falcons threw everything at Kirk Cousins. It's good to see they get somebody that's stable quarterback, but Kirk Cousins, he hasn't won anything. And to see the deal this past weekend with Justin Fields, where Justin Fields, you could have threw a sack of potatoes and picked up Justin Fields on the cheap. And the reason I say is because That's a lot of money they could put towards their defense. With someone like Justin, I'm not saying Justin Fields is a world beater. I know he didn't really fit the offensive scheme that they're planning to run. That's where Kirk Cousins is a big plus because he's run this offense that Zach Robinson's planning to execute next year. But Kirk Cousins, I've seen this before, man, with him. But then he's also coming off an Achilles injury. So there's just a lot of factors involved here where I thought the Falcons panicked as usual in these situations and threw everything at Kirk Cousins. He's coming. I'm just curious to see what he's going to be like because he did make mention of his escapability may not be there off the jump. So if he can't scramble, he's going to be getting sacked a lot because if you watch the Atlanta Falcons games, they do block well, but you got to be able to be elusive. And if he can't be elusive, we got Matt Ryan 2.0. Very curious to see how that goes. They did sign Darnell Mooney, but then they picked up Rondale Moore they traded Desmond Ridder for Rondale Moore. I just didn't get that. I understand they're trying to get, it sounds like they're trying to get some speed on the offensive side of the ball to complement Drake London and Bijan and Kyle Pitts. So it's just some things that I'll just have to wait and see. I'm going to be positive here, Jason. I'm going to be the optimist, half glass full. But my man Kirk Cousins has one playoff win, and we know what his record is in primetime games. But hey, maybe he's coming to Atlanta. He's got the bag, and now he's going to turn over a new leaf. So we'll see.
With Kirk Cousins, you all will win the division.
I can't say that, Jason.
On how free agency have gone so far, divisional wise, do you think this opens it up for you all?
No, because Tampa Bay they brought back Mike Evans. Baker Mayfield, talk about getting overpaid. Baker Mayfield got overpaid in Tampa Bay. I still think it's going to be close because we still don't have the edge rusher yet. Now the draft is coming up, and there could be some moves made where they get the edge rusher and improve the defense. So if we get a cornerback and an edge rusher, maybe another linebacker, I may say something different. But until I see that, it's going to be close again. We're not head and shoulders above anyone, I guess is what I'm getting at.
I think with the Packers and the NFC North, I think they have come a little bit closer to getting into the division race here. I think they're going to have to get a running back in the draft that is going to be a speed back, a scat back, if you will, just to provide some kind of flexibility there. But again, they may be relying upon the receivers for a short yardage. But I'm just hoping that the offense really changes appropriately so that way there can be that flexibility. There can be that nuance that, puts defenses on their heels. So we'll see. But I think the Packers have done something here, even on the defensive side of the ball. New defensive coach, that is going to be a win in itself.
No more Joe Barry, huh, Jason?
No more of him. I'll say this, another interesting move, Saquon Barkley going from the Giants to the Eagles. That's a move to really take note and really watch out for. So I think that puts the Eagles back in contention. Another interesting move was that of Derrick Henry moving to the Ravens. Makes the Ravens just what they are, even more so, a running team. Don't know how that's going to really, translate into the playoffs. We thought that was going to translate into the playoffs this year. We saw what happened. Chiefs are getting better. I love how, though, the NFL changed the dates. It changed it to where now the NFL free agency is before the actual draft. And now they can draft on need as opposed to vice versa. And now, Danny, on to a little March Madness. The bracket is set up for both the men's and women's side. Try to fill out this bracket, Danny, for the men's side. I think right now what we're witnessing is a lot of parity. There's no more mega teams out there in the transfer portal, NIL deals, all that stuff has really level the playing field across the board. And I think that's why you're seeing some coaches, some older coaches retire and getting out the game, if you will, because the game has changed significantly. I struggled with one game in particular. I struggled with Houston, and I actually put Houston up against Marquette. I struggled with that one because, man, after seeing the score that Houston put up against Iowa State in the championship game, where they got waxed, it was a cause for pause for me.
Mm-hmm.
And it was a cause for pause trying to figure out this Houston Marquette game. But I ended up picking Houston in that game. And my final four picks, Danny. Now, I will say this: I haven't watched a whole lot of NCAA basketball this year, other than just hearing some things here and there, checking some of the sports ticker, whatever the case may be. But my final four, I have UConn in North Carolina. Then I have Houston and Tennessee. Three number ones and a number two. And it should be noted, this is a pick of a bracket. Don't use this for no betting purposes on your end. This is solely just pure fun here, but that's who I have, Danny. What you got?
Jason, I got to make one comment about the NCAA March Madness and this first four that starts tomorrow night. It is a travesty that teams that actually won their conference championship have to play in these games. It should be reserved for those bubble teams or those power conferences that actually did not deserve to get in the tournament. And that, because the whole purpose of these championships is to say, oh, you got an automatic bid to the tournament, but we're going to send you to this little cash grab over here in Dayton, Ohio, and penalize the teams that actually won their conference championships. Because there are a lot of teams, there are a number of teams in this, I believe there's four, where they should be actually planning to play on Thursday and Friday, not on Tuesday and Wednesday. And that's been a gripe of mine ever since they started this first four, where penalizing teams. So Wagner, I'm going to call it Wagner, Grambling, Howard, just off the top of my head, they actually won their conference championships, but they had to play in the first four. And this will also apply to UW Milwaukee, where if they would have won the Horizon League, where Oakland got a 14 seed, they're planning to put Milwaukee into the first four. So I just had to say that because it's something every year I see that, and I see those teams that busted their butt. They won these conference championships. They may be the lower rated teams, but they earned to be in the top 64. It annoys me every time I see the brackets when they say that and put those teams that these like the 11 and 12 seeds, those are the ones that should be playing in this tournament or these first four games or whatever. So, but then on to the brackets themselves, that South bracket, I was going to talk about the same bracket, the one with Houston, Marquette, Wisconsin, which there could be a slim possibility. Though everyone's talking about Wisconsin and James Madison, Wisconsin don't have a chance. Like, man, give them a chance at least. But Kentucky is in that bracket. And Marquette, with their point guard, sounds like he's going to play based on what Shaka Smart said last night. Houston has a key injury of Marcus Sasser. There's a lot of injuries, which makes this bracket particularly interesting because it's wide open. And your bracket could be busted off day one based on some of these teams and the parity you mentioned, because last year, remember, there was not a number one in sight when you got to the Final Four. So this is all, like you mentioned, this is all for fun. And it's interesting because I look at UConn, I think they have the toughest bracket, and they're the top seed. So they kind of did them wrong with Iowa State, Auburn, and who's the 3 seed in their bracket? Illinois. Final Four wise, I actually I'm gonna go with chalk with UConn. North Carolina, I think they can bounce back after that terrible loss to North Carolina State. Congratulations to North Carolina State, by the way, beating Duke and North Carolina in that ACC tournament. That Tennessee bracket, I'm bouncing between Tennessee and Purdue. I don't trust either one, to be totally honest with you. Because Purdue, if you get them in an up-tempo game, that slows down Edey, and they can put Edey at a disadvantage. I also had Tennessee, unfortunately, so this is scaring me right now. And that top bracket with Houston, Marquette, Kentucky, I have Kentucky right now, and it's all contingent upon the injuries of Tyler Kolek and Sasser from Houston. If they say they got a clean bill of health, I may switch that. That's what I'm looking at right now. But right now, I have Kentucky sneaking in. But I've watched Kentucky this year, and they can get bounced in the first round. So that's the beauty of March Madness, man. It's you just don't know, and it's the fun of picking and thinking you may know what you're doing, but you really don't know because every round is different based on matchup. So, and these teams have like a day to turn around and prepare for the next game. That's what we're looking at right now from the men's side.
No, I was going to say, Danny, I think we're both kind of looking forward to the women's side. I haven't even looked at the brackets, but I'll tell you, man, I'm just going to enjoy watching the games. I think any given day, any given game is going to be just a treat to watch. I'm really interested in watching the Jackson State Tigers, the ladies of Jackson State, play, even though, yes, it is against UConn, but I'm really intrigued by the matchup and wanting to see if Jackson State can go into UConn and pull off an upset, come close to pulling off an upset. They came close to pulling off an upset last year against LSU, who were the eventual champions. And so I'm really interested in that game, man. I'm also interested in the potential matchup again with with LSU and South Carolina. I want to see if there's going to be some get back, some payback there down the line. So this is going to be really interesting, man. I'm just going to enjoy watching it. How about you?
So the number one seeds are South Carolina, Iowa, USC, and Texas. And LSU is actually in Iowa's bracket. I wonder why. If yes, you can't see me. So we'll have a possible rematch of last year's national championship game within the bracket itself. Ultimately, it could be LSU, South Carolina. It could be a number of different ways this could go. So the same, as I said, for the men's goes for the women's as well, because some of these matchups is just speed versus, power and things like that, where these upsets can happen. But I'm actually looking forward to this year, man. It's just the build up. South Carolina coming in undefeated. You mentioned Jackson State playing against UConn. That's a good matchup. Marquette plays Ole Miss. UW Green Bay. That's Tennessee. Some from Wisconsin team. So I'm just excited to start this week and get this going.
And lastly, Danny, gotta give a shout out to a relative of mine who was inducted into the Bob Hayes Hall of Fame. For those of you who don't know who Bob Hayes is, he is a former, well, first of all, he's an NFL Hall of Famer, was inducted into the Hall of Fame. And he is the only person in the world to have a gold medal and also Super Bowl ring. Bob Hayes, affectionately known as Bullet Bob Hayes, actually went to Florida A&M and played football there, ran track, etc. And was drafted by the Dallas Cowboys. The induction by my uncle, Caleb White. He actually is a track coach. And he has been a track coach for quite a number of years. And so I have to say, man, this was a full circle moment for him, long overdue. But he has coached the likes of Jeremiah Clark, who also was inducted into the Bob Hayes Hall of Fame. And Jeremiah, she's won gold medals in the Olympics, World Championships, etc. And so there's a few others that were inducted. Armand Hall, Tony McCory, as I mentioned, Jeremiah Clark, Oren Lawrence, Kendall Ellis, Al Denson, and of course, as I mentioned, Caleb White. And so I have to say, big shout out, big congratulations to all of the inductees, especially to that of Caleb White. Long overdue, but nonetheless, he was able to see the celebration, see the fruits of his labor, and is now a Hall of Famer. And that was in Jacksonville, Florida. And so, man, it was a good ceremony, a proud, very proud moment for the family and definitely for my uncle. So big ups, big shout out to him.
Thank you for joining us at Back Porch Talk Podcast. You can also join us on Twitter by tweeting us at @back_podcast. For more information, you can go to our website, which is backporchtalkpodcast.com. You can also email us at backporchtalkpodcast@gmail.com. Again, thank you for joining us, and remember that there's enough hate in the world, so go ahead and spread a little love.